Hi everyone, it's Sintang Mayumi. For today's video, I'm going to make 3 cards, 1 kit collaboration with Nancy and Cherryl. And we are using Kindred Stamps Toy Box card kit. This toy box has cute stamp set, sequins for embellishment, a stencil. So this is the stencil here, and 6x6 pattern papers. And you get 2 of each design. So these are the pattern papers that are included in the card kit. And then you also get the glitter gloss, and this one is called Alien, and it's like a neon green color shimmer paste. So these are the images. I already went ahead and colored them with my Zig Clean Color Rear Brush markers. I did color 3 of each of the characters except for the aliens. I colored more of the alien because I'm going to use more than one on my second card later. Then I fussy cut them all with my detailed scissor and my craft knife. For the first card, I'm going to use this stamp set from Raisin Boat called Big Rig Party. I will use the truck, and this card will be a light up card. I'm going to stamp my truck on a watercolor paper using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then I'm going to pour some clear embossing powder on top of the image, and then melt the powder with my heat tool. To color the truck, I will again use my Zig markers, and I did very simple coloring here. As you can see, the background is already colored, and I think I forgot to turn on my camera, or probably my camera just shuts off. So I colored the background with my Daniel Smith watercolor paints. And I'm going to use this stamp set from Altinu called Birchland Stamp Set. I will stamp the tree on each side of the panel, and I mask off the bottom with washi tape because I don't want the part of the tree on the road. I also did the same, masking off the upper part of the tree so I can stamp the branches. And then I use Modlon Distress Oxide ink to stamp the leaves. I end up not using the other ink that you see on my surface. And then I just scatter all the leaves all around on the upper part of the panel. I also colored the tree trunk with transparent brown oxide watercolor paint. I pull out my We Are Memory Keepers crocodile tool to punch a holes on my truck, and the truck has 4 circles on the lower part, so that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to cut out the inside part of the squares using my craft knife. After we cut the circles and squares out, I will use my Memento Black marker to color the inside of the cutouts, and I'm coloring it on the back so I don't accidentally ruin my colored panel. And then I'm going to die cut this panel with stitch rectangle die, and I also die cut another panel and we are going to use that for our circuit. I have two die cut panels here, and what I'm going to do is trace the inside of the circles and squares that we cut out so I know exactly where to put my lights. I will also write a mark on the upper right corner on the other panel, and that is where we are going to put our battery. I'm cutting a small piece of paper here to hold our battery, and I will fold it in half, and then I will use my bond folder to crease the side so it is flat. And then I will adhere it down with glossy accent with flap facing right. We are also going to add lines on this panel so I know where to place my copper foil tape. The lines doesn't have to be perfect, and this is just going to help me so I know where to add or adhere my copper foil tape. I buy my copper foil tape on Amazon. The one that I have is 1/4 inches wide. What I do is I cut my copper foil tape in half to get more out of my tape, but you don't have to cut it if you don't want to. I'm just placing my tape here where my lines are, and then I will add another line of copper foil tape on the positive side, and this one is our negative line. For our positive line, I will start adhering the copper foil tape in the inside flap going to the outside, and on the lines going to the marks where I will place my lights later. And then I will use my bond folder to press the copper foil tape on the paper. I use 2016 3-volt battery for my circuit. I get my battery in my local grocery store, and I like this 2016 3-volt battery because it is flat. There are also other 3-volt battery in the store, but I always get this one here. I use Chibitronics LED circuit stickers. I buy this one on Amazon as well. I will use 2 of the orange LED lights and 2 of the white LED lights. I was going to use red, but I ran out of red lights, so I just use orange. I really like this Chibitronics LED lights because on the light stickers it has positive and negative sign written on them, so you know where to place them on your circuit panel. And now that our light circuit panel is working, it's time to add the foam tape. Before we adhere our colored panel on our circuit panel, I need to color this die-cut circle with Modlon Distress Oxide ink and stamp press here using my Favorite Things interactive label stamp set. I'm using my scraps of vellum to adhere on the cutout. I cut 2 small pieces of vellum so I can adhere them on top of each other, and I do this so the LED lights is not so bright when it's on. I press the circuit again to make sure it's working before we adhere our colored panel on top of the circuit panel. And I'm just removing all the release paper from the foam tape here, and then we can go ahead and adhere the colored panel on top of it. And then we can also adhere this stitch circle with press here label on the upper right corner of the panel. And then I will place these two characters on the back of the truck. I was inspired with the scene in the movie when the boy and his mom was moving. And then I will add this panel on my top folding A2 size card base, measures 5.5 by 4 1/4 inches. For the sentiment, I'm going to use one of the stamp from this stamp set that says just move. So this card is going to be a moving card. I use Hero Arts embossing ink to stamp the sentiment, and I will emboss it with white opaque bright white embossing powder, and then melt the powder with my heat tool. And then cut the sentiment using my Fiskars trimmer. I use foam tape on the back of the sentiment and adhere it on top of the truck. For the inside of the card, I will stamp a sentiment from There She Goes stamp set. This is an old stamp set that I have, but I love this sentiments for moving card. I use VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp the sentiment on the left side and stamp the box cutter beside the sentiment. And then I will add this panel in the inside of the card. Moving on to the second card, this one is a shaker card. I die cut my frame using Gina Marie Designs stitch frame die, and the paper I'm using is watercolor paper. I used Pyro Red to color my frame die cut. I did very simple coloring on this frame, leaving the highlights in the middle of the frame. These are my aliens. I'm going to use them in my shaker card. I used more than 10 of them, and I also used one of the space guy. I'm going to use the claw from the Lone Fawn Your Clawsome stamp set. I'm going to stamp that one with VersaFine Onyx Black ink on a watercolor paper and then color it with my Zig marker. I haven't used this stamp and die set yet from Lone Fawn, that's why the dies are still together. I will snip off the die that I need and use it to die cut my image. Secure it with washi tape and run it through my Sidekick machine. I die cut another frame and adhere on the back of the colored frame. This way my frame is sturdy. Now I'm going to adhere my acetate on the frame, and I'm using double-sided tape. You can also use liquid adhesive, but I don't want my glue oozing out of the acetate because I tend to put a lot of glue when I'm adhering something, and I thought the dry adhesive is safer for me to use. And then I will cut the excess acetate using my scissor. I also use foam tape on the back of the frame, and I did double up the foam tape. And then I'm running my powder tool on the side so the images and sequins that I put inside the shaker is not going to stick on the sides. This Galaxy pattern paper is from Kindred Stamp Space Heroes Card Kit. I will cut it the same size as my frame, and that one will be my background. I will also cut a long skinny rectangle, and that will go on the lower part of my panel. I will color this piece with my Tailu Blue Green Shade watercolor paint. I dry this piece with my heat tool and use my Memento black marker to color the sides of the colored rectangle paper. From the Lawn Fawn Colossum stamp set, I need the images on the lower part of the stamp. I will use those elements to add to my colored rectangle piece that I will put on the lower part of my crane machine. And I'm just coloring them with my zig markers again here, and then after I color them, I'm going to fussy cut them. I will tuck in my claw under the foam tape so it looks like it's in the inside of the crane machine. And then I'm going to add my aliens inside and one of my characters. And then I will also add this blue and green tiny stars, and this tiny sequins are from Michael's. I will remove the release paper from the foam tape and adhere my background panel on top of it. And then I'm going to adhere this ones here that I colored and fussy cut, and I'm just using glossy accent to adhere them on this skinny rectangle. And then I'm going to add double-sided tape on this one, and then I will adhere this on the lower part of our crane machine. And then I also again use double-sided tape on this panel, and then we're gonna adhere this one on our top folding card base. For the sentiment, I again color a scrap piece of watercolor paper using Phthalo Blue green shade and dry it with my heat tool. And I stamp the sentiment Happy Birthday with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, emboss it with clear embossing powder, and dry it with my heat tool again, and then cut the sentiment with my Fiskars trimmer. And using my Memento black marker to color the white edges of the sentiment and adhere that on the upper left corner of the crane machine. For the inside of the card, I'm stamping one of the sentiment from the card kit, and I used two of the characters, and I'm just placing them on each side in the inside of the card with glossy accents, and I'm adding one more of the sentiment and adding shadows on my characters. Stay tuned for part 2 of my 3 cards 1 card kit collaboration. I'm having trouble with my movie editor, that's why this video has part 2. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.